Week 7 of the Friday Night Pigskin, presented to you by MTD Products of Shelby, coming to you live from our downtown studio right here in Mansfield, Ohio, where, it was kind of a wacky week, but a fun week of Friday night football here. We saw some top-tier teams play some fantastic games. We saw others locked up in some dogfights, but one thing we do know for sure, the conference picture is starting to take some focus now as we're already nearing the end of the regular season. One of my old friends always says it's the fastest 10 weeks of the year. I think he just might be right. My name is Brian Skoronsky, and I am far from the only person here. All the gang is back. We got highlights coming up here in just a couple of minutes, but first, we got to tell you 7 things about the 7 weeks of the football season that you need to know with my dude, Eric Will. Fill us in, baby.
Some new things here, but some old things as well. And Brian, you're looking good with that jacket. I'm going to have to step my game up next week. He's looking good. So don't adjust your screens. That's just how it looks.
Okay. Just the lighting.
It's just the lighting. Now, Clear Fork is balling out. I think they might be the hottest team right now in the OCC. I think that Week 10 is getting closer and closer to being a 50-50 game. So I really like what Dave Carroll's doing down in the Valley. Keep it rolling, Coach. I like what's going on. You got those young pups. In the preseason, even people like me, we said you were a year away, right? May not be a year away. They're playing really well
right now. And I heard Coach Carroll was actually real ticked about the performance tonight, so that just lets you know that they're at a new level right now.
No, and I agree. They're playing really, really well. And then the Firelands Conference, still a 2-team race, but man, it's hard for me not to almost just – it's going to be tough to beat Crestview. Crestview is playing like they are angry at the grass, which I know makes a couple of people around here pretty happy. But
and they're about to have turf, too.
That's why they got to replace it, because they were angry at it. But man, they're really, really good. What I saw them do tonight was really impressive, not from the offensive side, but from the defensive side, because South Central's been putting points up against everybody.
Sure.
And so that's a great win tonight. How about Northmoor?
Okay.
They've got the inside track, but maybe it's not the inside track, because we know Highland's coming up. That could be a Week 10 doozy right there. But congratulations to Northmoor on the win tonight. I thought East Knox would probably pull that out, but I'll tell you what, that coaching staff had their players ready to go. That is an incredible win. Great job. Their community, I'm sure, is just celebrating tonight. And then, hey, Cary Baby continuing to do what they do. They're owning the N10 right now, so good for them. And then West Holmes continued to put more of a gap. That Lexington team has gotten better and better and better, and so for them to get, I believe it was 27-10 abouts. So West Holmes, great job setting up that matchup for next week with Shelby, which I think is the area game of the week. Is the Shelby-West Holmes game next week. So you're going to want to get down to Skiles and watch that game. So you've got 6-1 Shelby. At least, preseason and leading through this, going through the season here, Shelby's kind of been the favorite to win the MOAC. And then you've got West Holmes, who's kind of taken the driver's seat in the OCC. So you've got Holmes County, Richland County. It's going to be a big one. Strength and weaknesses are going to be interesting. And then I want to see if anybody can stop William Smith, man. That dude is a baller. So if you want to see a great run game, good aerial attack, be down at Skiles next week. And then Lucas bounced back. Great job. Not that we're surprised by this, but Tim and Calvert's, that's a quality opponent. That was a great halftime. It was a fight for a half. Coach Spittler does what he does. I'm looking forward to getting back down there Week 9. We're going to be back down there Week 9. We're going to be up in the treehouse rocking it out against Fort Lauderdale. It's a little chillier in
the treehouse. Now the fall has set in. I tell you, my nose was running a little bit in that second half, Eric, but we're still having a good time out there.
Well, it's because you got to wear that jacket, man. Put the jacket on, a little stocking cap. And then last, the playoff seeding now. So you're starting to see these regions are really starting to take shape. Every one of these games, like I figured Shelby out coming into tonight, I think they were like 9-19 were their opponents, which is why they were sitting down a little bit lower on that home side or even potentially traveling. So they have to get this win next week if they want to secure a home spot. Otherwise, they could find themselves on the road Week 11.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy actually to think about. And Travis, I think, has some updated playoff rankings for us, so later in the show we're going to check those out. But first, let's show you all the scores from around the area. Let's begin with the Firelands Conference, where, as you already mentioned, Crestview still undefeated. There's a big collision course on the way, Week 9, St. Paul. It's okay to look forward, people. I think that's going to be a battle of undefeateds there, but Plymouth hanging 60 on the board. I believe that's a season high for them. Monroeville, not the Eagles team that we've seen over the last couple of years, and then a big one tomorrow, of course, with the Flyers trying to stay unbeaten too.
Yeah, in that Western Reserve game, we were just talking about that actually before we went on the air here. That's not a foregone conclusion that St. Paul's winning that game. Western Reserve is a really, really good football team.
And the Rough Riders is the one team in the conference that seems to be able to beat them about every other year.
Agreed. Until next week when we get that taken out. Brian, I know you're not 100% sold yet, but dude, Crestview is really good, man. As a matter of fact, I'm even going to go as far as saying they're a top 1 or 2 team in the area. Like, they're that good. Is there anybody else that you would definitively be able to say is better than Crestview right now?
Ooh, in our general area? That's a great question.
Offense,
how about those undefeated Northmoor Golden Knights, Travis, huh?
Right. No, and like I said, I'm not saying that wouldn't compete with them or is in that conversation, but I'm just saying definitively better. Do you feel comfortable in saying that? I'm not. I think they're that good.
I think you're right. That's a fair point.
And then Plymouth is, we knew Plymouth was going to be solid. I think they're going to be, as they continue to roll, I think they could be even a potential tough out in the playoffs because they're going to be in. They're going to be able to roll a little bit. And, man, Gibsonburg beating Monroeville, for me, not a huge surprise there. Gibsonburg's pretty solid this year. That's a little bit of a drive, too. But tomorrow night, keep yourself tuned in because the fan in me is rooting for St. Paul to win this game. I'll be honest with you. I mean, you know how it is. It's not like I have a dog in the fight, but just because of what that sets up for Week 9 is, that's just a fan and a media person's like that. That's the secret sauce right there. That's what you want for Week 9. So, if St. Paul wins that, I feel like it's like Crestview 1A and then like 1C. Is St. Paul. I'm telling you, Crestview is really good, man.
Did you hear that, Flyers fans? You guys are below them, and I don't think Crestview's beaten you in about 2 decades. We'll find out here in a couple of weeks. All right, let's check out the KMAC scores tonight. And the biggest game that we had in the entire area, no question about it. It went down at the Castle. You got to be impressed with what you've seen from the Knights. They're still unblemished on the year. Highland, I think a bit of a surprise team. They're undefeated still in the conference. They have to play Northmoor still on the season. Danville is an underrated team, in my opinion. They roll up a big number tonight, and so does Centerburg. I feel like they took out a little bit of frustration on Mount Gilead, Eric.
Yeah, this is a tough conference. We've talked about that almost every week, that this is there are 4 or 5 teams in this conference that are really good. Northmoor obviously separated themselves tonight with a very hard-fought win. This was, I believe, 7-7 at the half, so this was a tough game that came out. I believe they scoring 17 points unanswered there is a great way to close that game out at home. So, like I said, they're celebrating like crazy down there. And then you add the Highland component. We've discussed Highland. Their running game is top-notch. So, we're going to continue to find out how good is that Northmoor defense. I think it's up to the task.
Yeah.
They've definitely, not that I wasn't a believer, but I'm all in. My chips are all in on Northmoor. But that sets up a great game. And I believe that's Week 10 if Highland were to meet up with Northmoor. So that's what you want. You love those Week 10 conference championship games. And if you're East Knox, hey, you still have a shot. You're rooting for Highland, but there's still a shot for you to get a piece of this thing if Highland would potentially get knocked off next week. And like you said, Danville's just really, really good. They're consistent. They're a team that every single week does things like this, 46-16. And here's the thing. Early in the year, Cardington was actually playing pretty competitive football. So, great job. Centerburg is, we thought that they would be at the top of this thing at the end. And it's not that they're completely out of this dogfight either. So
need some help.
But they definitely, they need a bunch of help. But it can happen. Crazier things have happened, especially when you look at the top of this league, because it's nothing for these teams to start knocking each other off.
All right, so that's the KMAC scores from tonight. Let's move on to the MOAC. And the big game of the night, Shelby versus Galion. The Whippets, I'm told, didn't look great, but they got a dub. Clear Fork ran all over Ontario, who was held to just 71 total yards in the game. And River Valley, I think, starting to answer some of the doubters. People were saying that they had a paper record at the beginning of the year when they were like 3-0. Now they're starting to look pretty good. And then Harding, too. This is a team that's been coming on. Right. They've had one dud of a game at Arlen Field in, I believe, Week 2. Other than that, they've been arguably the second best team in this conference, ranked right up there with Clear Fork and River Valley.
The talent at Harding is undeniable. Their quarterback's solid. They've got good wide receivers. Their defense is aggressive. Their biggest thing is sometimes they're their own worst enemy. they'll drop passes, maybe a penalty, maybe a turnover. Their quarterback's legit. He's a good ball player. And they're not going anywhere like that. They've got some nice kids coming up through, so they're going to have something to say next year in this league as they continue to move forward. But 4-3, that's not bad. I mean, they're competing. And then Shelby just they kind of almost slept. Maybe it's homecoming. Who knows? You got all these things going on. But they had 6 offensive points in the first half. They had Galion started the game off with an onside kick. Shelby scooped it up and scored. And then they woke up a little bit in the second half. Marshall Shepard probably looked human, if that makes sense, but I think a lot of that was Galion. Galion didn't just sit back. They were bringing people. They were bringing that 4th and 5th guy, which I think is going to be a template. Make Marshall Shepard move. Make him uncomfortable. Get him off his platform. Try to win the first 2 seconds, as you would say. And then you look at Clear Fork. I think they're as hot as can be. Since the second half of that Lexington game, they have been on fire. Absolutely on fire. And Coach Carroll is an old school guy. I put him in that same category just as far as that old school, like a Ned Nassani at Bellevue.
Sure.
They're really good at what they do. Their kids will play hard for them, and they hold the entire program from the top all the way down accountable. And if you're not getting it done, he's going to find someone who will. And I'll tell you what, Clear Fork, I said this in the beginning. I counted you. I said you might be a year away. I don't know, man. Those young guys are growing up quick, because I'll tell you what, it's amazing. Sometimes your young guys, they don't know what they don't know. And they don't know that they're supposed to be a year away. So they might just go ahead and compete for that baby this year. And they are. They're competing for it this year. That's another kind of selfish one. I'm kind of wanting that Week 10 Clear Fork at Shelby league title. And that would be for the outright chip. And Clear Fork does something that Shelby struggles with. They run the ball and trying to stop it. And because I thought Shelby played better tonight, but I don't think they've played the animal that's going to be Clear Fork with the ability to at least have the threat to do both. And River Valley is playing much better. I think it's kind of interesting. Pleasant was kind of had a middle of the season. They were kind of playing okay. They've kind of tailspin down here a little bit. But River Valley, Shelby plays them in 2 weeks. So. That's going to be another tough one, because you got to go to River Valley, and River Valley was a team at the beginning of the year that I thought was in the conversation for battling out for the MOAC championship. And then we talked about Lucas in the opening. Lucas is just, they beat a Division II team. They come back. They play a great program in Canton Central Catholic, who's still playing up. It's still, a Division V school, I believe. So Lucas just doing what Lucas does. They're going to pick you up. They're going to run the ball. They're going to drop you off in the end zone and rock you to sleep, man.
And we got highlights for 3 of these games coming up, including the Lucas contest, Clear Fork's big win, as well as the Shelby Whippets. Let's check out the N10 now, where the cream of the crop, it's definitely risen. Colonel Crawford really flexed on the road tonight at MOAC. Lincoln Molikoff, ridiculous again. 4 more touchdowns for that dude. Upper Sandusky, they had the top passing attack in the Northern 10 entering today. Caden Holman shut out on the day, and I know you love your Cary Blue Devils. They proved tonight they're the real deal, buddy. They really are.
And that goes back to when I said, is anybody better than Crestview? Well, it might be Cary. It might be Cary. When we could see that again. That's a district final, district semifinal type game. They're a regional final, regional semifinal type game, because they're really, really good. And they're bringing a lot of dudes back from last year's team. And Seneca East bouncing back, getting a nice win there against Winford. Not a surprise, because like I said, Winford's good, but their schedule's even better. And Seneca East, I think, I don't know what happened last week. That was just uncharacteristic of them. And then Colonel Crawford is 6-1. They're a great team. Unfortunately, it's just Cary is the best team in this conference. It's undisputed. And then, hey, Cyrus Redmond, baby, getting the big dub. How about the shutout too? At that 35. Everybody's probably over at Baker's right now, probably having a big, eating a big 8-corner pizza right now, man.
I hope so.
That's tasty food over there. But anyway, so they get the big win there, 2-5 on the year. Anytime you get a win, man, you're just. Sometimes when you're going through those valley spots, it's just like there's a mirage of water, and you'll do anything to drink it, man. So I'm glad Buckeye Central. I'm glad Cyrus got that win tonight against Buckeye Central. And if you're Buckeye Central, keep plugging away. You got a few weeks here left. See if you can get off another win here.
All right, let's check out the last conference that we have scores for, the OCC, where the Knights are now all alone in first place. They're 4-0 in the league. Ashland losing at Arlen tonight. So 3 teams now tied for second at 2-1, that being the Arrows and Mansfield Senior as well as Worcester. So this is definitely West Holmes' conference to lose at this point. I don't see them dropping another game in conference. They do have a big one coming up next week, taking on the Shelby Whippers. That's going to be a fun game.
Yeah. And Brian, I'll get to that in just a second because I'm going to look at that Ashland-Mansfield senior game. How about senior high coming back? That's showing a lot of resilience because they were down multiple scores there at halftime. And for them to make that comeback, it was interesting because, it wasn't like I could see a box score. I could just see the score. And I'm like, I wonder what's going on over at Arlen Field because I know how good Mansfield's defense is, and I know Ashland has struggled a little bit offensively. So for Mansfield to be able to make that up, come back, and get that win is huge. And Ashland's still Ashland. They've got playmakers all over the field. They're just trying to find consistency, and I know they've been banged up front big time this year. And I think Worcester and Mansfield play next week. So we're going to, in my opinion, we're finding out who's the second best team in the league. Right now, I do like Worcester because I feel like they're more complete offense and defense. I feel like Mansfield Senior's defense is actually good enough to win a championship. I don't know if their offense is there. And then you look at Madison's they are more competitive this year. The scores have actually indicated that as such as well. And then, like you were saying, West Holmes. I think what's interesting about West Holmes, in my opinion, is you look at their scores and you're not necessarily really impressed, but then you watch them play and you just see they're in complete control every series. And they lean on that offensive line. They lean on that running game. Their quarterback is solid. Defensively, they're really, really good. I'm trying to remember number 5's name for West Holmes. Doggone it. Schreier, it's something like that. The dude plays like a bull in a china shop. I mean, he's 5'11", like 210, and just he's coming with bad intentions every single play to put it. He's putting his number on yours. So I really like the way West Holmes goes about their business. They're just very physical, but they have the athletes to play. And once again, preseason, not a big surprise. I know people really liked West Holmes, and they thought Worcester and Mansfield would kind of be that second and third team to challenge West Holmes. And I think that's how it's played out. I almost feel like out of all the conferences, this one's been the most chalk.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I'll give you that, Eric. All right. Appreciate the time tonight, Coach Will. As always, fabulous stuff from you, and we still have a ton to come here on the Friday Night Pigskin, including the top play of the week from Week 6, as well as the Friday Night Phenom. That's right on the other side of this quick commercial timeout.
Headquartered in Valley City, Ohio, MTD Products is a leader in the outdoor power equipment industry. We create products that help consumers build memories. Whether it's inspiring people to care for a public garden or enjoy their backyard with family and friends, community is at the heart of what we do at MTD Products. We are looking for people who want to be a part of our future and who are dedicated to cutting-edge product innovation and outstanding customer service. We'll provide you with the necessary tools for success in your career at MTD and help inspire people to care for and enjoy the outdoors around the world.
here on the Friday Night Pigskin presented by MTD Products over in Shelby. It is time for everyone's favorite part of the night. That's right, it is highlight time. But first, we put a lot of weight on your shoulders out there, the fans, each and every week to determine what the best play was that we captured with our cameras, and then also who the best performance was each and every week. So let's show you what the fan vote decided this week from week 6. Let's check out the Phenom. And here is your winner from the Clear Fork Colts. I believe he's a 2-time winner now. How about Victor Skoog, who had a flat-out awesome performance in a victory against Galion. He threw for almost 200 yards in this game, had 12 completions as well. Also did some nice work on the ground, as you saw right there. 67 rush yards for Victor. He is a workhorse. 3 total tutties for this Colt as he led his team to victory. And like Coach Will said, one of the hottest teams in the entire area, if not the hottest. It's the Clear Fork Colts, thanks in large part to your Phenom from week 6, Victor Skoog. So that's the best individual performance that we saw, but how about the best overall play? We roll out 5 nominees every week. You, the people, decide. And after all the votes came in, how about this? To open up the second half at the Castle in Northmoor and Fredericktown wasn't dead just yet, thanks to Tegan Rule. Taking this kick return all the way back to the house, 84 yards. The Knights would have the last laugh, but he, Mr. Rule, would have the top play of the week. And of course, every Monday we roll out the top 5 plays that you get to check out, as well as the best individual performances. So you have to watch the OH.Report video podcast every single Monday and then weigh in, make your vote count. All right, let's get into the highlights, people, shall we? Let's begin with some moving pictures. Lucas coming off of their only loss of the season, returning home tonight against Tiffin Calvert, a team that had won 2 in a row. Here's how it all shook out over at Bob Wine Field. And the Cubs, as they do so well, taking the lead. It's Grant Barrett going to put Lucas up 10-0 in the first on a nice 9-yard TD burst to the outside. The fireworks were popping off, but Harry Schultz, 12-yard TD toss to Nolan Beaker, who was a mismatch nightmare all night long, 6'3", about 230 pounds. He really lit it up. But in the second quarter, Corbin Toms, look at that cut in between traffic, 69 yards. He's going to make a house call. It was 17-6 in favor of Lucas. The fireworks going off yet again. Then just before the half, Beaker going to get behind the D. He's double covered, and it still doesn't matter. He pulls in yet another touchdown grab. He should have had a third that was negated by a horrible call by an official. And then in the third quarter, Corbin Toms blocks a punt. Grant Barrett would go on to score a couple of plays later, the first of his couple of touchdowns on the night, or his second, I should say. And then Zane Finley, the little engine that just keeps on going, 24 yards. He gets out of there, 36-14. The Cubs are 5-1. They had 360 yards of offense in this game. Each and every inch of those came on the ground. They didn't need to throw a pass and complete it because that's just what they do. They wear you down throughout the course of a game. That's why they won 36-14, ending Calvert's win streak. It was a really fun game between a team that basically runs every down and a team that passes every down. Next week, Hilltop, they got their hands full. I don't think they've won a game yet. And the Cubs, they're hungry. They're back on track. They're coming to your place. All right, Andy Jardy is joining me now for some MOAC action. You were over at the Colt Corral, Andy, tonight. And Ontario, a young team, looking to get some momentum, going on the road. And I just don't think they found any, did they?
They did not. They did not. They ran into a Clear Fork team that's playing as good as anyone else is in the area right now. It was homecoming at the Colt Corral. It's going to be a real tough task for Ontario tonight to try and get the W on the road. But they did give a valiant effort, as we will see in the highlights here for you. Starting things off in the first quarter. And that is going to be Caleb Holla, 12-yard touchdown run, makes it 7-0
and he is into the end zone.
Touchdown for Clear Fork tonight, but he did. Later in the first quarter, Victor Skoog rolling out, and it's the homecoming king, Devin Freeman, with the touchdown, 14-0 Colts. And then just before the end of the first quarter, look at this throw from Victor Skoog. You can't spell victory without Victor. Ooh. That makes it 21-0 to Tristan Robeson. And then just before the half, kickers are people too. Carter Windsor, 35-yard field goal. Never a doubt. Look out, Justin Tucker. It's 31-0 at the half. Third quarter, though, Skoog is suddenly human as he throws an inexplicable pick six here, and he actually was benched after this. It was his second interception of the night. He still had a great game, but he made some questionable decisions. But no problem. The backup, Casey Swank, comes in, does a nice job. 9-yard touchdown pass to Jay Jackson. The Colts roll 45-7.
Let's talk about that Clear Fork defense. I believe you told me that they held Ontario to 1 yard rushing?
That is correct. They held Ontario to 1 yard rushing tonight, and we saw them do it last week too. They shut down a Galion rushing attack that has been great this year. Ontario, the top rushing team in the MOAC, could not get anything going on the ground tonight. A dominating effort by Clear Fork on the defensive side of the ball.
And I know my dude Dave Carroll has some high standards out there in the Valley, but Victor Skoog, the only two-time Friday Night Phenom that we have on this program, benched?
Yeah, so, I mean, they were up big. It was 31-7 after that pick six, and he came out of the game after that. And, you know, maybe it's because they were up big. Maybe it's because he made some questionable throws, and they just didn't like what they were seeing, and maybe wanted to send a message to him that his play wasn't what was needed for Clear Fork tonight. But he played a great game up until those two throws. I mean, he was unstoppable in the first half. Clear Fork came out, jumped out to a 31-0 lead at the half and looked unstoppable. But yeah, it got a little weird there at halftime and then into the second half.
So Clear Fork is 5-2 on the season. They're contending in the MOAC. They would just have to knock off the Shelby Whippets at the end of the year. Do you feel like they're on that type of trajectory where they could be good enough by week 10 to knock off a team like Shelby?
I don't know about knockoff, but they're definitely trending in the right direction. I think that's actually going to be a game. I think a couple weeks ago I would have said not a chance, but Clear Fork is clicking right now. They have found their rhythm here halfway through the season. They're peaking at the right time, as they say. I think it's going to be a very fun game in week 10, and I know Eric talked about it earlier. I hope that is like a conference championship matchup in week 10 that we get between those two teams.
So Ontario, I mean, it's a young team. They're still learning. I love the coaching staff out there, and it seems like they're at least buying in. They're just probably a couple of years away from competing for championships. What's a positive that you think the Warriors can take away from tonight?
Well, I mean, they played much better in the second half. They matched Clear Fork in the third quarter. It was 7-7 in the third quarter alone, and they didn't quit. They could have came out in the second half with a running clock and said, you know what, it's cold. We're getting crushed. It's homecoming. This isn't fun. Let's just get out of here as quick as we can. But they scored immediately, got rid of the running clock. They fought in this game. There was just too much talent for Clear Fork, and it's an Ontario team that's still learning how to win. I think that they're just going to have a tough season this year, and they'll be back on track here in a couple of years, maybe next year.
All right, Andy. Appreciate it. Good stuff as always. And it was a little foreshadowing. I saw that we gave you just a quick peek of what was to come. How about the dynamic duo over here? Our two resident gentlemen, hello, the see Galion and Shelby each and every week. And guess what? They played each other tonight. So something had to give. What was it, gentlemen? What went down?
A lot. Shelby gave a lot. Galion gave a lot. It was a really fun game to watch. I think everything kind of what we expected, Garrett. No, you didn't personally get to watch it, but I know I was yakking your ear off here before the show about what had happened. But let's take a look at those rolling pictures. This one started off kind of weird. Missed the first half of this play, but Coach Dick came out with an onside kick. Max Hess recovers it. The onside kick to start the game takes it all the way to the big house, 50 yards. Then fast forward to the second quarter. Marshall Shepard, 38 yards, and his guy Andre Hill for another 6. They would miss the PAT, bringing it to 13-0 in favor of the Whippets. Then a missed snap from the Tigers. The ball rolls into the end zone, and Cooper Kent dives on it. That one would be a safety. And then next up, Skylar Winters finds the gap, and the rest is history. 58 yards, turning on the Jets. He could go all the way, and does, and brings it to 22-0 in favor of the in favor of Shelby. Gabe Ivey then trying to end the shutout, and that he would do from 3 yards out. And Marshall Shepard, a quick drop back, lofts this one into the end zone, and Isaiah Ramsey does the rest, and another TD for Shelby. And finally, Shepard scrambles and finds a wide open Blaine Bowman for the final score, bringing us to our final score of 37-7 in favor of the Shelby Whippets. And it was a pretty exciting one. And Garrett, I know you actually had some questions about tonight's game, and I said, save it for the show. Want to answer all your questions you got about the Tigers and the Whippets, live on air.
Yes, Rom, I was over at the Clear Fork game, but let's jump into Galion at Shelby. Now, Galion, I've been out there a lot this year, actually all year until tonight, so they made a lot of mistakes, and they have really all year. What really was the issue tonight, and what was the careless mistakes that really hurt them?
It was all just small things. I mean, they missed that onside kick. I mean, a huge, like you said, you were saying earlier, you like that call from Coach Dick, but unfortunately, these guys just didn't quite execute enough. They didn't bring, the whippets down, and they were able to score. And then they had a lot of drop snaps, a lot of snaps over the head, things like that. One ended up in a safety, but got themselves into a lot of tricky 3rd and long, 4th and longs, and there was not a lot of punting tonight here from the Galion Tigers.
And tonight, Shelby didn't really rely on Marshall Shepard as much as they used to. We've seen a long touchdown run from Skylar Winters. And you think that's the game plan going forward as the competition toughens up, as we got West Holmes on the schedule, then River Valley, and then the finish here with Clear Fork?
I don't think so much that they'll rely more on Skylar Winters, but, well, actually, kind of I do. Get him more involved in the offense a little bit. Just get, more two-faceted offense running. I mean, Marshall Shepard still with 260 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also did have 1 interception, but, that's kind of scary when that's one of your worst games on the season and you still throw for almost 300 yards. But, yeah, I think they're really going to try to get, Winters and a couple of the other backs over there at Shelby incorporated more into the offense to kind of keep the pressure off Marshall.
Well, to complement that offense comes a great defense, and Shelby shut down Hanif Donaldson tonight. Do you think the defense is finally coming alive?
Yeah, I really do. Hanif Donaldson, he only had 114 yards on 18 carries, and as you know, that's
a quiet night.
Yeah, that's a quiet night for that guy, and that's a big dude. So, Shelby's front line really getting it done tonight on the defensive end, and their secondary really locked down on Galion's passing game. They only had 36 yards through the air, Galion did. So it was just a lot of tiny things that started adding up for Galion, but unfortunately the Tigers fell, but my Whippets got the W.
That's all right, Storm. We're going to see if they can continue to do that throughout the year and win that MOAC conference. We're set up for a collision course in Week 10 against Clear Fork, but let's send it back to Brian with Travis.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. And that shows you what kind of year that Marshall Shepard's having. When Storm walked in earlier and said that he had kind of a pedestrian game, he still threw for 3 bills and a few touchdowns. So, man, unbelievable. I'm told didn't get the votes for Homecoming King, though. He can't get the Phenom. He can't get love at school. What is going on? Look at how disappointed my friend over here is.
I thought he was a shoo-in, man, and that's what I think every week for Phenom, but just doesn't happen. Actually, Garrett, Marshall asked about you. Coach Craig asked about you. They miss you over at Shelby. We're going to have to get you out to a Whippets game.
I miss them, too. Shout out to them guys, man.
Well, maybe we'll do a little role reversal next week. We'll send G-Man out to Shelby, and then you can go hang out with Coach Dick and the Tigers.
I have to.
All right. All right, thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it. All right, let's jump into the OCC now, and kind of the game of the night in the conference. Ashland and Mansfield, one of the best rivalries that we have in the entire North Central Ohio area. Let's show you how it all shook out. The Arrows would get off to a fast start, as you're about to see, but the Tigers, oh yeah, they're going to come back. Let's begin with Landon McFrederick throwing a dime here, 37 yards to Grayson Sturry. That would make it 6-0. And then Ashland with an interception. Braylon Hyder going to go hide in the end zone. It's 12-0 in favor of the Arrows, but Mansfield Senior going to start getting it going. Brock Hill, 33 yards. He takes that run into the zone. After the PAT was good, it would be 12-7. And then here's the handoff. Bolting into the end zone. It's a touchdown. It's Mills from 2 yards out. Later on, McFrederick throwing a dime again. 78 yards this time. Johnson going to coast into the zone. So Ashland strikes back, and then they would score again. McFrederick, it's a tough name to say. Doing it all by himself, 52-yard run. The 2-point conversion would be no good, so it leaves the door open for the Tigers. Here is Hill to Miles Bradley. This would close the gap, and then later on in the fourth quarter, with just a minute to go, 48-yard pass. This would be a game winner to Owens. He's going to take it in, and Mansfield Senior staying alive, kind of, in the OCC title chase, but at least really taking a big notch and a big step in the right direction of hosting a game in the playoffs in Week 11. So, Travis, you're here. Tell me, are you impressed with what you saw from the Tigers battling back against an Ashland team that's not really having a great season?
You know what? It's the grit of the Tigers. Battling back once again. They had a big win a few weeks ago against Hoover, where they came back late to win. But this is a very, very big win for them, not only with the OCC race sticking around, but with the playoff ratings, which we will get to all of you, showing everything later on. But Mansfield Senior looking pretty good right now when it comes to the playoff ratings.
The one thing I do like, 420 yards of offense the Tigers rolled up, so that's the inconsistent part of their game. Tonight they had it going on, and they had the big play ability, what you certainly like to see from those TY Tigers. And speaking of big plays, how about this Colonel Crawford against Mohawk game? Go ahead and roll it, because there's a ton of highlights. Lots of touchdowns are about to be filling your eyeballs. Here we go. We begin things here with Zayden Fry. He's been doing this all season long. You know, Mohawk gets off to a hot start. Bryce Hannum finds him out of the backfield, and he's going to take it all the way into the end zone. He's actually a running back. He's the third leading receiver in the Northern 10. But Cameron Lohr dropping more dimes. How about Carson Feichner? 45 yards into the end zone. We are tied after the first quarter, but that's when Lincoln Mollenkopf would take over from there. He's going to barrel into the end zone. He's got over 20 rush TDs on the year. Nolan McKibben now going to make a diving catch into the corner of the end zone, and the second would extend the Eagles' lead. How about Mollenkopf again doing what he does? Second TD of the night. He would finish with 4 of them. How about we show you number 3 coming up right here, as he's going to get back into the end zone and showing off that speed. He is, what, the second leading rusher in the area?
He is the second leading rusher behind Nauman, but it looks like he's trying to cut into it. I know Nauman went off as well tonight.
Speaking of going off, how about Fry? This guy, he has an explosive play every single week. We have Mohawk on the program a lot, and we've seen Zayden Fry do a whole lot of that, but unfortunately for them, Mollenkopf was doing a whole lot of this, making a grab here in the end zone. So he did a bit of things really well on the ground, through the sky. Everything looking good for the Eagles tonight. 42-14. They take care of Mohawk, and I think that the Eagles have, I mean, they're solidified easily, I would say, as a number 2 team in the N10, right behind Cary, who kind of spanked him a couple weeks ago.
Cary is by far ahead of everybody else, and
they're the team.
You could say multiple conferences around here, but Colonel Crawford played him tough too. They played Cary tough, lost by, I think it was like 17 points or something like that. But Colonel Crawford, they'll be fine. I mean, they have a tough region again, but they're just surprising everybody. It's like they're like Crestview. They lost a lot of key contributors from last year, but they just retool, rebuild, and they're right on the path for another long playoff run, possibly.
All right, since we got K-Mac Trav with us, let's dive into the K-Mac now, shall we? How about Centerburg returning home and looking good tonight against Mount Gilead? Let's roll those highlights. Let me get a quick sip of energy drink, because there's a lot of touchdowns coming. Oh, let's begin with this one. How about a 32-yard scamper here? Kalen LeMaster, he was busy on this night. This would make it 7-zip in the first quarter. Later in the first, it's LeMaster again. This time he's going to go 64 yards all the way to the house. It was 14-0 in favor of the Trojans, but Garrett George of Mount Gilead trying to cut down on the deficit here. This would trim it in half, 14-7. This was early in the second quarter, but Jack Gregory would get it going. LeMaster seems like a good guy to find, right? 19 yards. He gets into the end zone for the 3rd time in 2 quarters, and wow, that was so much fun. Let's do it again on defense this time. A 17-yard fumble, scoop, and score. It is 28-7. The route is on. Gregory now is going to hook up with Parker. Makes a fabulous catch, and he's going to go half the length of the football field. It's 35-7 in the 3rd, and keeping the good times going. Merklin, 20-yard TD catch here. Gregory was on fire in this one. 42-7 now at this point, and now as we fast forward into the 4th quarter, Carter Keenan had a 2-yard touchdown run, but just too much Gregory and company. They end it right here. Jared Rings, 62 yards to the zone. And Centerburg, the defending kings of the conference, we thought that they would have nights like this against some of the bottom feeders, and they proved that they're not amongst the elite per se. They're not in the top 2, but they're definitely right there in that second tier, Trav.
Yeah, after falling back-to-back games to East Knox by a couple scores and then by 10 points to a very good Highland team, bouncing back, defeating Cardington Lincoln by 4. Who Cardington, despite having COVID and out a couple weeks, they are a solid squad too. They gave Northmoor a test, and I think they take on East Knox as well coming up. But knocking off Cardington, knocking off Mount Gilead gets them back into the the tone of things. It gets them at least still in the talk of maybe getting into the top 8. I believe tonight they're 12th on Joe Idle's rankings right now. So they're in the playoffs, but if they maybe win out, they still got to play Northmoor as well. At Northmoor, week 9, they can finish 3-0. They possibly could still get a home game.
Speaking of Northmoor, I feel like they maybe played a big game tonight, Travis.
Very big game,
you
actually.
might have been there. Tell us about it.
Well, let's go to the highlights. Golden Knights first play from scrimmage. Marcus Cortez takes off, but there's a fumble. Coughs it up on the first play. East Knox, they are in business, but the Golden Knight defense will hold 4th and long. Peyton Lester is flushed out of the pocket and only gets back to the original line of scrimmage. Northmoor takes over, and they go on a drive. And who else to give to? Max Lauer from 13 yards out. Breaks 1 tackle, breaks 2 tackles, gets hit by 2 more, leans into the end zone, touchdown. Golden Knights take a 7-0 lead.
Wow.
Move to the second, 4th and goal, Bulldogs from the 1, handoff, stuffed at the line of scrimmage, hits a wall. CJ Stoney is pumped. Game remains 7-0 going towards the end of the first half, but on the next Bulldog possession, 4th and 7 from the 41, Lester goes to the air, and he will find a double-covered Shane Knepp over the shoulder catch. Bulldogs tie things up going to the break. Second half now, Northmoor first possession, and Marcus Cortez takes over up the middle, jukes one man, pinballs off his own teammate, cuts right, gets a block, and he is gone 41 yards. 2-point conversion good, it's 15-7. East Knox next possession, Lester under pressure after the fumble snap, throws it to no one. That's intentional grounding in the end zone. That's a safety. Northmoor up 17-7. And then Max Lauer finishes things off, gets the handoff, bounces off his own man, but goes into the end zone. Sound the sirens, light up the lights. Northmoor wins 24-7. They remain unbeaten, 7-0.
I think they might be the most impressive team that we have in the area, Travis. At least the team that has surprised us the most. Them and Crestview both still undefeated at this point in the year. But these Golden Knights, buddy, in the KMAC, this was their biggest test. At home, and they performed. I imagine you got to feel a little bit like a proud papa watching your boys grow up right before your very eyes.
Well, you know, I like East Knox too. They love me down there. We all love East Knox. It was kind of a tough game because, you know, it's like two of your children going off to different schools. Who do you root for? Well, tonight the Golden Knights, they get some payback. 2019, week 6, undefeated both squads. OH.Report was there covering East Knox. East Knox just runs them over 41-0. They win the KMAC championship. Northmoor just 1 win away, can't get it done. Go to 2018, Highland, Northmoor, both undefeated going into week 10. Highland wins it 38-20 in the rain. Northmoor gets Highland in week 10 coming up. Maybe for a chance at a KMAC championship if Highland keeps going. But the running game of Northmoor, very impressive. Not just Max Lauer, 30 carries, $120, 2 touchdowns. Marcus Cortez, 15 carries, 116 yards, touchdown. He's a multi-play guy. He can throw it, he can pass it. Also the defense really shut down a very high passing offense, a high running offense. Charles Naylor gets into the backfield for most of the first half, really shuts things down, really pressures Peyton Lester into a couple passes that he could have completed if he had more time. Also, you know, forced him to run, get tackled after a couple yard loss. Halftime, they make the adjustment. They double him, but that opens up for Gavin Whitehead, Max Lauer, Andrew Armros to get in there. He was just hounded the whole night. His only big play was that 4th down dime to Shane Knepp, which, you know, that's something he does every time, but he only had a couple opportunities to do that. Lester, 8 of 13, 126 yards, a touchdown interception. Rushing as well, only 88 yards. That Northmoor defense stepped it up in a big way tonight, gets a huge win, and stays in that top 4 in their region, maybe going to host 2 games. East Knox, though, they're going to stay around 4, 5, or 6, so they as well, if they can win out, beat Highland, that'll be some playoff points. They'll host probably 2 games as well.
All right, so you talked about the playoff ratings. Let's go ahead and take a look at these. We'll get to them in a second. I'm assuming that we're going to start with the big schools in Division 3, Region 10, and we'll just go through these real quick, and we'll explain to you guys some of our local teams and what they're looking at over the next few weeks, how many wins they need to get to try to secure some home playoff games. And here we go with some of those big schools. And West Holmes, I think they pretty much all but locked up a home playoff game at this point. Mansfield Senior 2, I think that their strength of schedule is good enough that even if they were to drop a game or two over the next 3, Travis, they're going to be playing at Arlen Field in Week 11.
Yeah, no matter what, they'll be doing that. Mansfield Senior, they're staying in the 4 spot right now. West Holmes, they're way up there. They're 3 points in average above Padua Franciscan for the 3 spots. So they're probably another win or two. They're going to be in the top 2 with Norton. But, yeah, Mansfield Senior right now sitting pretty in the 4 spot. They keep on winning. They're probably going to get 2 home games instead of 1. Also, River Valley in at 8 right now. So if they continue to win, they can probably get 1 home game.
All right, let's check out Region 14 now in Division 4. Bellevue, who had that big win over Shelby, that's why they're up where they are right now. Clear Fork's actually ahead of the Whippets 2 in the ratings, Travis. So those are the 2 teams here in our area that are going to meet in Week 10. And the winner of that game probably vaults themselves way up, maybe a spot or 2. That's going to be a really critical game, not just for the MOAC conference, but for the playoff rankings.
Yeah, the winner's probably going to get 2 home games. Bellevue 1, Perkins 2. They played each other tonight. Bellevue 1. So they take the top spot. Van Wert, Clyde, Perkins, top 4. Shelby vaults ahead of Clear Fork right now. They're at 6. Clear Fork is at 7. But like you said, the winner of that Week 10 game is going to get a lot of playoff points. And if they stay around that area, one of them is probably going to vault up to the top 4. And the other one will possibly, if they can continue winning in the next couple of weeks, stay at least at 1 home game.
All right, let's move on and check out the next region. And we're going to check out Division 6, Region 22, where those Crestview Cougars still undefeated. They got the Cary Blue Devils right behind them, Colonel Crawford 2, Western Reserve. So this kind of loaded. I like those 3 area teams and what they all bring to the table, as well as Western Reserve too. But this one, it seems like Crestview, if they win out, they'll probably be the #1 seed out there.
Yeah, actually Crestview dropped the number 3 right now because it was Columbus Grove beat another Crestview squad, which had more playoff points. They're still at 3. If they can knock off St. Paul, I know you're
I'm a little
iffy about it, a little skeptical
We'll
right now. But if they can do that, they'll vault up at least 1 or 2. But right now, they keep winning. They could probably get themselves into a position where even if they don't beat St. Paul, I believe they will, they'll still stay in the top 4. Colonel Crawford right now in the 8th spot. Western Reserve right now at 9. But if they can upset St. Paul, they will vault up to maybe 7 or 6, and they would be in that home playoff spot as well.
All right, let's move on to the next region. We'll stay in Division 6. And how about Region 23, where there's those Golden Knights, and with the playoff points that they just got tonight, moving up in the rankings.
Yeah, they went from 4th to 3rd right now, and there's still playoff points out there. Centerburg right now sits at 12th. If they can, win next week, that matchup against Northmoor could get them either a win gets them closer to the 8th spot, maybe a home game, but a loss could get them back down towards that 16th spot. So that's a big matchup in 2 weeks, but Centerburg, they have to take care of business. And for Northmoor, the #1 seed is still well in their grasp. Fort Fry's first with a 12.523 average. Northmoor just behind in 3rd with a 12.336. So that Highland game could be huge, not only for a KMAC championship, but also maybe a #1 seed.
All right, let's move on to Division 7 now and show you Region 25, where the Lucas Cubs, their strength of schedule just so good. And when you're D7, you pretty much got to play up. You can't play down. That's what the Cubs have done. They still have one more really big test. I believe it's Week 10 at Mogador. So assuming that the Cubs get wins in their next couple of games against some opponents, at least for them, are inferior opponents. I think they're playing at winless Hilltop next week. They're not going to get a ton of points, Travis, but they're going to stay right there near the top. And then that Mogador game potentially could give them the opportunity to be the #1 seed out there, in particularly if St. Paul were to lose to those Cougars.
Yeah, I think if Lucas can win out and St. Paul loses once, they could probably overtake the #1 spot. But that really doesn't matter when you get to the regional, because the regional semifinal and final are at neutral sites anyway, so even a top 2 or a top 4 spot. Lucas right now is at 10.56. The 16th spot, their average 2.43. So I think it's safe to say Lucas has locked the spot in the playoffs. It's just now where they're at. If they can win out, I think they're safe at 2 home games in a good position to play a lower seed in the regional semifinal. Now also, Plymouth right now sitting at 12th, Monroeville at 13th, so they're still alive for a playoff spot.
I believe we have still one more region to check out. And here it is. The East Knox Bulldogs are in there and near the top. And as you said, really if you can get a top 4 seed, that's what's most important. That's where all the value is.
They actually benefited because there were 3 teams around them. Shadyside at 2, Burn Union at 3, and then Frontier at 6. They all had byes because of COVID. So East Knox right now still sits in the number 4 spot. So a win could have really vaulted them maybe into the 2nd or 1st spot, but they still have a chance. And once again, they play Highland in week number 9. Highland, a division, I believe D3 or D4 school. So knocking them off gets them those bonus points. So if East Knox, also Northmoor, both of them can still get a top 4 seed if they can just win out.
All right, so that's what the playoff rankings look like right now, with just 3 more weeks to go until the regular season is over. It's kind of crazy to think how fast
Fastest
it
10
goes.
weeks, somebody told me once.
Truly is. All right, guys, we're going to step away one more time. We'll come back and we'll show you what we have on the menu for you. Week 8 coming up next Friday. Stay tuned.
Headquartered in Valley City, Ohio, MTD Products is a leader in the outdoor power equipment industry. We create products that help consumers build memories. Whether it's inspiring people to care for a public garden or enjoy their backyard with family and friends, community is at the heart of what we do at MTD Products. We are looking for people who want to be a part of our future and who are dedicated to cutting-edge product innovation and outstanding customer service. We'll provide you with the necessary tools for success in your career at MTD and help inspire people to care for and enjoy the outdoors around the world.
Close the chapter on week 7 here on the Friday Night Pigskin. Let's go ahead and look forward to week 8, what we have coming up for you great folks right here on the OH.Report, including the Crestview Cougars returning home. They're going to be taking on the Plymouth Big Red. You can check that one out live, and that's a rivalry game. Crestview boys, tell us about it.
Let's go Crestview!
Coach Steve Haverdale, you need to lock in, man. You can't overlook Plymouth. I think this is a bigger game than what people expect it's going to be, because if they overlook Plymouth, man, this could ruin their whole season if they're looking for that same
Come on,
week.
Cougars.
Is this on the new
Gotta
turf,
keep
too?
them focused in.
They may, I don't
Maybe.
think,
I don't know.
Maybe.
Still up.
That's what I've heard. They do have a special thing that's going to be going on where they're going to be reading some books to some kids out there on the turf, but I don't know if it's quite ready for football. Nevertheless, Cougars are going to be playing a quasi-home game.
Cougs.
It'll be in Ashland, I can tell you that.
Same area.
Okay, let's move on to our next live game next week. And back in KMAC country, Danville, I think, you know, they don't have a great record on paper, but they're a competitive team. They don't get blown out, and they can win big, as you saw tonight, going against a Trojan squad. I feel like, Travis, they want to prove that even though they had a couple of off nights early in the year, they had this strange week where they had to sit out right before the East Knox game, that they're still a really quality squad in the KMAC.
Yeah, and there's 16 teams in the playoffs this year. They're still fighting for a spot to get into the playoffs. Danville right now in Region 27 as well. They're 13th.
Don't count them out.
Yeah, both of these teams fighting for playoff spots, so this is a kind of a play-in game right now.
And speaking of East Knox and some of the other teams in the KMAC, how about the Freddies going on the road in Howard, where the Bulldogs almost always seem to play well. It's a fabulous, fabulous place out there. What do you guys think? Bulldogs?
Bulldogs.
Yeah, Bulldogs. I like the
You gotta go with
Bulldogs
the
in this
Bulldogs.
one.
Yeah, I think you kind of got to like the Dogs out there. But this is a good rivalry game. I know that these two teams genuinely have some disdain for one another. So we're going to have that one for you live as well. That should be fun. Let's check out some of the highlights that we have on the way, including those Shelby Whippets against the West
game.
Home Knights. This is the game of the week. One of you guys are going to be there. I assume Storm, right?
Probably
Mr. Shelby?
Storm, yeah. Probably game of the year, I think. I mean, even bigger than that Week 2 matchup, but I don't know. This one's close. This one's very, very close. Yeah, I always got to go with my Whippets, but this one's going to be close, I think. This is going to be a really good game.
Two really, really good teams. West Holmes undefeated. Shelby just the one loss so far on the season. One more highlight on the docket for you guys, and Galion, this is a winnable game for them, G-Man. I imagine Hanif, he's going to have some crazy plays coming up on the highlights next week.
Yeah, I'm sure he's looking to get back on the Phenom list. A big game for Galion. I'm sure they're wanting to pick this one up, build some momentum. They got a lot of young guys on the squad, and so does Ontario. Both building years for these programs. Galion looking to pick up a win, on the road.
All right, so that's what we have at least set in stone that we know for sure that we're going to be able to bring to you guys. We're still trying to get some coverage. Mansfield Senior at Worcester. That could be a live game for you, maybe a highlight. I know Ashland is over at Lexington, so there's some other games in the area too that we're trying to bring to you guys right here on the OH Report. But I'm told we've been talking too much tonight. You know, you guys stay up late with us. We appreciate it. It's past 12:30, so I still got some more work to do. I'm going to get me a little sip, but I'm done for the night. Take it away, fellas.
Go Cougars.